to have Larry Kim and Steve Rayson both here with us from BuzzSumo, and we'll be covering 10 ridiculous hacks to 5x your click-through rate. It's going to be crazy. We've got some awesome stuff to put out to you guys today, so I'm totally excited. And here on the line is Larry Kim from WordStream and Steve Rayson from BuzzSumo, both super dynamic guys, so much great content come down the line. If you guys do have questions throughout the webinar today, you can chat at them on Twitter, at Steve Rayson or at Larry Kim. And before we get started, we want to learn a little bit about you guys. So we want to know, what are your biggest pain points when it comes to content? Is it creation? Is it promotion? Is it getting your content to convert people? Is it the associated cost with content? What is driving you crazy?
What's driving you crazy, Steve, in terms of these things?
Lots of these things drive me crazy, really. But I think every time we talk to clients, creating engaging content is something that comes up a lot. So creating it, although personally, I think people should spend more time on promotion and distribution. The thing I see a lot is people spend a huge amount of time creating content, but then expect people to just find it and don't spend enough time on promoting it, whether it's via paid ads or influencers. So, yeah, I think that's a hard one for people, but it'd be interesting to see what people say.
So I see here we have 65% of our audience today is concerned with their conversion rates. 29% on creation, 29% on promotion, and about 11% on the associated costs. So I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And Larry, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Noelle, and thanks, Steve, for joining us today. It's awesome to be doing another webinar with you guys at BuzzSumo. Before jumping into all of my crazy hacks, I just want to introduce myself for anyone new on the call, any BuzzSumo fans out there maybe. My name's Larry. I'm from Canada, originally from Winnipeg. It's famous for being colder than Mars. I now live in Harvard Square. It's in Cambridge. It's a famous town. Microsoft was founded there, as was Facebook, as was WordStream, originally by me back in 2008, working out of Panera Bread for the free Wi-Fi and Diet Coke refills, unlimited. We're now about 200 people managing about $500 million in ad spend for over 10,000 customers worldwide. All right, another crazy fact about me, I am the world record holder for a number of BuzzSumo reviews published, I think. I've been writing about it enthusiastically since, let's see here, June of 2014. That's got to be one of the early ones, I hope. We'll hear from Steve about BuzzSumo shortly. I also have a one-year-old named Julian, or PPC Kid. So enough about me. Let's just jump into some crazy hacks for insanely high click-through rates. I'll be sharing some of them, and Steve will be sharing the rest of them. Just thought it would make sense to speak briefly about why should you care about click-through rate, right? Sometimes people think like, oh, I want a low click-through rate because you have to pay for these clicks, and I don't want to have to pay too much, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands that's a suicide mission. That's a crazy idea. You absolutely need to care about high click-through rate in paid advertising. It has to do with this quality score phenomenon. It's kind of a conspiracy theory, but it's true. Basically, when you're doing AdWords or pretty much any type of advertising, basically Google decides, needs to decide who to show the ads to in what order, and usually you're not the only person in the entire world who's interested in showing an ad to for a particular keyword, and so the way they order them is based on the relevancy or the quality of the ads, and it's not just based on how much you're willing to pay. Now, it's a very unusual auction because basically there's kind of this penalty. Like if you're trying to run ads that no one's interested in and have very low qualities, you'll get a huge tax on your cost per click, as much as 400% increase in costs. Whereas if you have an ad that's really interesting and everyone's clicking on, they reward you with a huge discount of up to 50% off. So it's not just about the cost; it's also about whether or not your ads show. So this is a notion called impression share. Impression share is kind of like the market share for the ads. Like how often are the ads showing up for the keywords or for the people that you've specified interested in. And basically, what I can tell you is that every time your quality score increases by 1 point or decreases by 1 point, generally your ad impression share will increase or decrease by a corresponding 9%. And of course, impression share is even more, twice as important on mobile, which is kind of the future here because of the fewer ad spots, as you might expect. Impression share is twice as competitive, and so I would argue that this notion of quality score is twice as important on mobile. It's also not just about the cost per click and whether or not your ads show up. It's also about the cost per conversion. We've done huge analysis on large sets of data, and what I can tell you is, generally speaking, a 1 point or increase or decrease in relevancy and quality score will generally increase or decrease your cost per action by around 16%. And so obviously the idea here is to get a high quality score, but what people don't understand always is how does Google and other ad platforms actually calculate the quality and relevancy of the ads that are being shown. And so we've got thousands of customers here at WordStream, so we're able to reverse engineer this for you. Basically what I can tell you is that for every given spot in a search engine result page, first position, second position, third position, there's kind of an expected click-through rate. Like on average, ads in this spot get 10% click-through rate or 5% click-through rate or whatever. It's more if you're at the top and less if you're at the bottom. And so what we can tell you here is, having reverse engineered it using just WordStream customer data, that the scoring is largely just a notion of being above average. So if you can get a higher than expected click-through rate for your search engine page listings, if you're doing better than average in terms of people engaging with those ads, well then you'll have a high quality score. And so sometimes people tell me like, oh, it's not possible to get high quality scores in my industry, but this is completely false, because it's basically just an average. For any half of the companies are going to be above average and half of them are going to be below average, and then maybe the problem is just with that particular operator. And so I think the key here, if you're following me so far, get a high quality score. To do this, you get high click-through rates on the ads that you're running, and if you do so, life will be great. You'll get lots of ad impression share. Your cost per clicks will be low, as will your cost per conversion, and the reverse is also true. Life will be terrible if you have a low quality scores and low click-through rates. So, my friends, just say no to low click-through rate, please. Guys, AdWords is obviously a really big part of advertising these days, but quality score, it's just everywhere. It's not just AdWords. It was such a great idea that everyone is copying it. So, like, I don't know if you guys use Gmail ads. Those are those ads that show up at the top of your inbox. What I can tell you is that the higher the open rate for your emails that you're sponsoring in Gmail, the less you will pay for those clicks. So over $1.20 per open if you're promoting a junky email with very, very low open rate. But if you can get that open rate to 30% or 25%, you might be paying 15, 20 cents for those clicks. Same thing with the Google Display Network. Those are those image ads that show up everywhere, like on BBC or on the CNN on the side. Those image ads. Basically, those ads also use a quality score system. Basically, we've reverse engineered this as well. All of this is, Google doesn't tell you this. Like, it requires, they're not going to tell you exactly how their secret sauce works, but we're able to reverse engineer this based on our clients. So basically, the higher the click-through rate of the display ads that you're showing, you're either going to get huge increases or decreases in the cost per click for those Google display ads. It's not just about Google too. Facebook also kind of a thing. If you haven't heard of them, they have a big ad platform, and those ads are served based on a relevancy score as well. They just copied Google. It's basically, they just changed the word quality to relevancy. But the idea here is the higher the post engagement, the higher the relevancy score. The higher the relevancy score, the more often your ad will show, and the less you'll pay for it. And so that's a score from 1 to 10. In this case, the engagement could be like people liking or sharing or commenting or clicking or following you as a result of seeing those ads. Same thing in Twitter ads, higher relevancy, resonance, recency. You're going to have much better impressions at lower costs. A huge difference here. Sometimes people don't understand how much leverage there is in maximizing the click-through rates because they might, try to promote something with 1% engagement rate, and that costs them like $3 per click. If you could get that engagement rate up from 7 to 21 to 30 to 60%, your cost would go down from 8 cents to 3 cents to 2 cents to even 1/2 a penny for those clicks. And so basically, 1% increase in post engagement results in a 5% decrease in post engagement. And it's not just about the cost; it's also about the impressions. So the older something gets, the less likely the ad platforms are likely to promote the thing because it's not new anymore. There's also this notion of rank brain. Rank brain is kind of like a futuristic thing where Google is doing organic search listings based on click-through rates. So this is kind of their new search algo. They're kind of arranging the organic search listings based on what people are actually clicking on. So the old way it was all based on keywords and links and social metrics, etc. The new kind of top search ranking signal in the future is likely to be click-through rate. So basically, with the exception of LinkedIn ads, which is like the one backwards system in the entire internet where there's no quality score discounts offered, with the exception of LinkedIn ads, pretty much every major ad platform in the planet cares about high click-through rates and high engagement rates. And so that is why I believe in quality score. Hopefully I've convinced everyone on the call today. So here's my crazy CTR hacks. Some of them are pretty crazy, so just hang in there. My number 4 hack has to do with unicorn ads. Hacking your CTR with what I call unicorn ads. So a unicorn ad, it's this notion that these 2% click-through rates. It's not that great. They're basically a bunch of donkeys. It's hard to know how good what a good click-through rate is because you know what your click-through rate is, but you don't know what everyone else's. And so again, we made a big map of the distribution, and I can tell you there's a lot of variance. On average, there's a certain click-through rate, but if you can be in the top 25%, then you'll get 2 times the expected click-through rate. If you can be in the top 10%, you can be 3 times better than the average click-through rate. And if you can be in the top 1% of advertisers, you are a unicorn with 5 or 6 times the average click-through rate. So here's what I'm talking about in a table. Basically, if you're below average on your click-through rate, you're a donkey. If you're the top 1% of advertisers, that's hard to get there. But if you want to be like a top 5% or top 1%, then you will be a unicorn or a near unicorn. And so it's really great to be a unicorn because everything is so great. It's so sunny there. I spent a lot of time studying about unicorns and what makes them tick and where they live. So basically, what I wanted to do is share with you, having looked at hundreds of, actually millions of ads, what are some of the commonalities of these magical, mystical unicorn ads, and what makes them tick? And so, one of the most commonly used form of ad copywriting is to use dynamic keyword insertion. Something like more than half of the ads in the world use dynamic keyword insertion. That's where it kind of parrots back the words that you searched on. And so this is kind of these are not unicorns, basically. What I can tell you is that dynamic keyword search insertion, where you kind of parrot back the words that people are searching for, a lot of people like it because it produces above average results. So if you're just trying to be like a top 15% or slightly above average, then dynamic keyword insertion is your ticket to slightly above average. When it comes to being in the top 5% or even the top 1% of ads, these ads don't use dynamic keyword insertion. They actually rely on kind of wit or a guarantee or a unique selling proposition or emotional triggers, etc. So you can't just robotically create unicorns, basically. So another thing that comes up a lot is this notion of ad extensions. Like you see those site links and call out extensions at the bottom of these ads. Are unicorns? Do they have these bells and whistles on them? And so when we looked at our top performing cohorts, what we found was that there's definitely an uplift of using these site links and other kind of bells and whistles on your ads, but it kind of just gives you a small boost, like a 5-10% increase, not a 500% increase. So basically, it's very difficult to turn kind of a donkey into a unicorn by just bolting on a few call-out extensions or site linking extensions. So basically, when it comes to writing the top 1% of click-through rate ads, we studied this very extensively, and we've created a unicorn detector, and I'm going to share it with you here today. The first thing that you need to do, it has to do with the keyword selection. So that has to do with like focusing on sort of the keywords with high commercial intent. So people are much more likely to click on your ads if they're actually looking to buy something in the first place, whereas question and informational keywords, avoid those like the plague, because they're just looking to learn about something. They don't want to buy your stuff. So just think about the intent of the search. But here's really the main observation here is that the vast majority of the ads out there really stink, and I'm talking about over 95% of them. I call this an AdWords jackpot because basically I hit a row of big data solutions. It's the same ad, 4 times. All these advertisers using the same kind of dynamic keyword insertion. Here's a kind of a row of iPad minis. It feels like I hit the jackpot here in terms of like it looks like lucky sevens right across the board there. So the opposite of kind of this notion of boring, unoriginal copies of the same ad is to use emotional triggers in your ad copy. And so when you're thinking about writing the ad, most of the times ads are written from the persona of the advertiser speaking to the customer. But if you can try to change your perspective in terms of the voice of the ad and who is speaking, and instead of being the advertiser, be the bearer of bad news, a hero or a villain, a comedian or a feel-good friend. If you can write the ad and kind of summarize what you're offering from one of those target personas, you will see generally much better results. Here's kind of a example of this technique. It's a unicorn that gets 6 times the average click-through rate. In this case, the hero is the divorce attorney, the villain is the husband and the mistress, and the emotion that we're triggering here is anger and revenge. Who's your husband with? Is he sleeping with her right now? Get revenge and a smile on your face. Wow, I can see how that would get a 6 times click-through rate and be a unicorn. And of course, this is a unicorn because everyone else are donkeys. Everyone else sucks. So don't use the same ad as everyone else, people. Try to use something a little bit more original. And instead, leverage these emotional triggers in ads. And Steve's going to talk about more of this in just a bit. And be the unicorn in a sea of donkeys. Another unicorn example has to do with breast cancer screening. With early detection, survival rate is 100%. Book an appointment today. That's pretty matter of fact. It's kind of like the advertiser is talking to the person. But what if we pick one of these personas, the bearer of bad news, for example, and what if we use the emotion of fear from that persona? So now we say breast cancer screening. Only 15% of women live 5 years with late detection get screened. So this is a much more powerful ad because it combines the different persona and the fear. And what we're seeing is it generates not only it's not only this a unicorn with 6 times the click-through rate, it also carries through to conversion. So the people actually end up booking more appointments and increasing calls from this new thing. And by the way, calls are worth a lot more than just clicks to your website because there's more urgency. Yeah, so basically these unicorns, what we find is they work great for not just click-through rate, but also conversion rates. So repeat after me, leverage emotional triggers in your ads. So just 5 minutes here left. I'm going to talk about a couple more hacks. One is eliminating your crappy ads and keywords. So a bit of it is not only trying to find these great new ads to run, but it also has to do with deleting the stuff that isn't working. And so there's basically, for all of these systems, there's kind of this account-wide quality score, and basically what I'm suggesting that you do is you have to delete the crap in your account and sort of double down on your best stuff. So what I'm talking about here is maybe adding some more unicorns and more branded terms with high click-through rates to raise your average quality scores, and also deleting kind of the bottom fifth or bottom 25% of your account in terms of the worst ads, and maybe try something else, maybe Facebook remarketing or anything like Google Display Network. I just wanted to show you a couple of distributions. The point is, this is an average account where you have keywords, those green dots, that are both above and below average. Okay, so you would expect to see quality score distribution that is both above and below average, but instead what you see is only low quality score keywords and no high quality score keywords. Basically what happens is that there's the crap in this account is like a cancer that is killing everything. The opposite is also true. Here's an account where you have lots of great quality score keywords, high click-through rate keywords, and a bunch of low underperforming keywords. So you would expect to see mostly high quality score keywords and some below quality score keywords, but instead what you actually see is that this keyword only has a high quality score keywords of 7 and 10. And even though there were some poor performing keywords in this mix, they all get a pass because the account is doing so well. Basically, the hack here is just delete your junk, fix the stuff in the middle, and don't mess with the winners. And guys, it's the same thing on Facebook. If you have stuff that's doing well and you have stuff that's doing poorly, delete the stuff that's doing poorly and allocate that budget to the stuff that's doing well. Number 2 hack here, in just the 3 minutes we have left here, I want to talk a little bit about targeting and audiences. So it's not just about the ad copy and the keyword. It's also who you're targeting, and now you can go after not everyone who's searching for your stuff, but also specific people. And by targeting both people and the keywords, you'll actually generate substantially higher click-through rates and lower costs. So basically, there's this notion of remarketing lists for search ads, or RLSA, and here we're targeting ads to not everyone who's searching for stuff, but just the people who you care about, as specified by people who've recently visited your site, or perhaps lists of names of people that you have on your email list. And so basically, it's kind of interesting. It's called customer match. You can target these ads to search YouTube and Gmail ads to specific people. You just upload your list into the system. It'll match them because usually you're probably logged into Gmail or YouTube or something like that, so that's how they get you. And basically, this doubles the click-through rate because they're familiar with your brand. Because the click-through rate is doubled, you get half the cost per click, which is a bargain because of the higher quality scores, and they also convert better because they're familiar with your brand. And so I just wanted to show you a couple examples here. Here's the same set of keywords being targeted on different campaign types. So one is just like generic keywords, another one is targeted to people who recently visited the website through RLSA, and another one has to do with email targeting. Look how the return on ad spend, you're making $3 for every dollar spent versus $5 for every dollar spent versus $9 for every dollar spent. It's pretty interesting. Basically, same thing with click-through rate and cost per click is massively better, and so you can just clone those audiences and find people who are similar who might also be interested in your stuff. So just moving along here, my number 1 CTR boosting hack, which is to look to content headlines and use those to inspire your ads. And so basically, we should not. Basically, there's such great material out there like this one. A dad took his daughter on a trip, just the two of them, and wrote down what he learned. I'm so curious to know what did he learn. So I'm going to click on this. The ads, like display ads, social ads, PPC ads, should just figure out what to write and derive it based on what works in content. And BuzzSumo did some great research about what are the emotions that make people click on things, and it is our belief that it is the same emotions that make people click on content that make people that drive people to click on ads. And so, oh my goodness, there's more. I want to turn this over to Steve at BuzzSumo, who will go through remaining hacks here. So I'm going to just give you click control, Steve. Are you able to move the screen?
To see if I can move the screen. Yeah, I think Yep, I've got it. That's brilliant. Thanks, Larry. That's great. And and hopefully I can add some more flesh on the bones in terms of headlines that work. People who know me and know BuzzSumo will know that I like delving deep into data to try to see if I can get insights from what the data tells us. So I'm often pulling millions of posts and analyzing them. And for the last 2 months, I've been looking at this issue of headlines. So I'm hoping I can add something here. And in particular, I've been looking at, is there a format or structure to viral headlines that make them resonate? So if you look at the most shared headlines, do they have something in common? Then I started looking at other words and phrases that work particularly well that make people share headlines. And interestingly, do headlines travel across social networks? So if something works on Facebook, does it work on Twitter? Does it work on LinkedIn? And then I've been thinking about, what can we learn from that to apply them to ads? So I'm just going to share this afternoon the research I've been doing over the last couple of months, and hopefully you have some interesting takeaways from that. So, okay, so go through. So the first thing is that there are lots and lots of articles on how to improve your headlines. So you just type in your tips on headlines, you'll see thousands of these different articles. This is one, which I think is quite good. It says be unique, be specific, be useful. But for me, it's great. It sounds rational, it sounds good. But what I like to look at is really what the data tells us. So what I've been doing is saying, okay, those ideas are great, but what does the data show? So I've been looking at three things specifically. One is the structure of headlines. The second one is the words and phrases that work. And then I've been looking at this issue about what works differently on different networks. So if I take the first one here, structure of viral headlines, we have analyzed millions of posts, and we do think there are some common elements to viral headlines, headlines that get shared a lot. And just quickly, there are 5 types of elements we think that you typically see in a viral headline. The first is an emotional element, so that might be using words like amusing, surprising, shocking, those sorts of things, but some emotional element, as Larry talked about your ads earlier. There's a content element, which makes it clear to you that this is about images or facts or quotes, and often those first two get combined as you would expect. So you can see that there might be amusing images, surprising images, heartwarming video, whatever it happens to be. So we get those 2 elements. We have a topic element, which is simply what is it about. So it could be a trending topic about Donald Trump. You can't fail to do well at the moment with stories about Donald Trump. But there are also perennial favorites, so health, fitness, cats, dogs, how to live a long life. People are always interested in those things. So we have found with viral content, those elements always do well. We also have found that there's a format element, and that the most popular of these are list posts. So if you put a number in front of things, it does do quite well. But there are also quizzes and stories, and so there's a format element which is signposted and signaled in the headline. And then finally there's a promise element, which is often how to complete guide to practical tips, how to improve something. So what we've found with viral headlines is often they contain 3, 4, or even 5 of these elements in that particular headline. Just to give first example. So here's one headline. I just made this one up, but 10 amazing facts about Donald Trump. You can see how it takes in some of those elements. So the format, it's a list post. It could be a quiz or infographic. There's an emotional hook. It could be 10 shocking facts about Donald Trump. There's a content element. It could be 10 amazing images about Donald Trump. And then there's the topic itself, which is Donald Trump. So you'll find this a lot. Once you start looking at viral headlines, what we'll often see is that it follows this same sort of structure with these elements in it. So I'm just going to click through. I'm sorry about this bit. Okay, it's clicked through. Sorry, I had to click through on my screen. You'll recognize this headline. This was the headline for the webinar. I think Larry came up with this. I can't claim credit for it, but you'll be familiar with this particular headline for the webinar.
We got you. You're here.
And so I took that headline just as one example. So look at this headline, 10 ridiculous hacks to 5 times click-through rates. It was effective. Over 2,500 of you signed up. I think it was 3,000 to this webinar. And look at it, it contains all 5 elements that we typically find in a viral headline. It's got a list post, the content type is hacks or tips, it's got a promise, and it's got a popular topic, so click-through rates. Everyone wants to know how to improve click-through rates. So that headline has all 5 elements of what we typically see in a viral post headline. It's not to say that your post will go viral, but what we're saying is it's a common element. Viral posts often have these common elements in the headlines. So that was the first thing we looked at. The next thing we looked at was specific words and phrases, so like those superlative words, etc. And I was particularly interested in trigrams. Trigrams is simply a 3-word phrase, posh word for a 3-word phrase in headlines. So I was saying, what are the most shared trigrams? What really works in headlines? So we did a little bit of research around it. Just firstly, a little note on the research. Basically, we just took 1 million articles at random from a lot of the top publishers. We then looked at trigrams that were present in at least 150 of those article headlines. And then we sorted them by shares to see which ones were the top performing. So that's just a bit of background about what we did, and I can talk to you more about that if you want to know about it. And I would just say as a note of caution, obviously social shares aren't always the best indicator. People can share things because of the author, because of the content itself, because of the site. So it's not the trigram that necessarily makes it get shared, but it's obviously one factor within it. So I click forward to the next slide. Okay, so if we start with Facebook, what I looked at then, well, what were the top trigrams on Facebook in terms of the ones that people shared? And hopefully this will load and show you where we're at. So what you've got in this column is, on the left-hand side, the trigram. On the middle is the average Facebook shares and likes combined. And then on the right-hand side, the number of articles that were in our sample. So we took 1 million posts. And so the top one here, X pictures that, was in 162 articles, or it was in the headline of the 162 articles. So we can see the top ones here. Now, X is just a number. So where there were numbers, we just replaced it with an X. So the top performing trigram on Facebook was actually X pictures that. So 10 pictures that show something, for example. And a really high average likes and shares, 19,000 of them across those 162 articles. The next one was X signs that you're something. And I think you begin to recognize a pattern, because all the previous research has shown that people like to share things for particular reasons. People like sharing pictures, we know that, and we can see that pictures and photos are sort of number 1 and number 5 on this list. People like sharing entertaining content, so make you laugh, doesn't surprise me that that's there. People also like to share quizzes, and we can see can we guess is a quiz question. Obviously, can we guess your age or what pop band you like or whatever it happens to be. You should never is a warning, and we know that people like to share warnings and understand things on Facebook. So I don't think particular surprises about what the top trigrams were on Facebook. It was fairly much, I think, what I was expecting, although things like pictures and things like that really do outperform others. And as we'll come on to, list posts work particularly well as well. What intrigued me, though, was, okay, so that's what works with Facebook, but what about the top trigrams on other networks? Would they be the same? Does a headline that works on Twitter work equally well on Facebook and vice versa? How much overlap is there between Facebook and Twitter? And I'd be interested in your views, really, and whether you think there's a lot of overlap, not much overlap, etc. there. Because I was expecting a degree of overlap here between Facebook and Twitter. I was thinking maybe 50% overlap. But actually the result's slightly surprising. So if we actually have a look at them, so hopefully it's appearing on your screen now, it will be what the two differences. So on the left-hand side, we have the top trigrams on Facebook, and on the right-hand side, we have the top trigrams on Twitter. Zero overlap. So in the top 10, I think in the top 25, there was zero overlap. There was some overlap as we worked down into the hundreds, but at the top, there was simply no overlap, which was a bit of a surprise for me, and would imply that if you're writing copy for different networks, you might want to use different words or different phrases that resonate with that audience. And I'm going to put this a bit crudely, but basically you could see the ones on the left, maybe more BuzzFeed-style headlines. Don't want to be unfair to BuzzFeed because they do a lot of serious stuff as well these days, but you know, X pictures, how it makes you laugh. If we look at the ones on the right-hand side for Twitter, maybe more, I don't know, New York Times-style headlines, you know, the science of, the future of, the rise of. The exception in there probably is Donald Trump is, which came out very high, and you can fill in your own blank there in terms of Donald Trump is on Twitter. But interestingly, quite a difference between Facebook and Twitter in terms of the phrases that were working in headlines. Okay, average Twitter shares are much lower, but that is the case. There are just less people on Twitter, and people get less tweets. You know, 554 shares is a reasonable average for Twitter, right? A high average. So I then wanted to take this further. So okay, I could see that for trigrams, but what about looking further at specific words and phrases? So our research had highlighted sort of emotional words that come up in the structure of headlines and those trigrams and phrases. So the next stage is for each of those, I went away and took a minimum of 10,000 posts which had that word or headline trigram in, and then I looked across all sites. So the averages get a bit lower, not just large publishers. I looked across everywhere just to see what the differences were. So just note at the page here in terms of what the findings were. And again, we found quite a lot of difference. So if you look initially at superlative words, so emotional words, I just took a few here. I've got loads of these, but for the purpose of the webinar, I've just put a few up here. Amazing, inspiring, successful. Amazing works amazingly well on Facebook. So if you see 10 amazing pictures, etc., I mean, post headlines with the word amazing in 15,000 average likes and shares. It also works really well on Twitter. So 500 on Twitter, really high. Not very good on LinkedIn. So people don't tend to share much posts with it. Amazing on LinkedIn, but it works very well on Facebook and Twitter. Inspiring, surprising, work less well on Facebook and Twitter. Inspiring, not bad. Successful works, it's far worse on Facebook, but interestingly, successful works a lot better on LinkedIn. 135 is quite good for LinkedIn. And that might be, again, due to the nature of the audience, people interested in successful in their job, successful in business. So headlines with the word successful seem to work relatively better on LinkedIn. If I'm targeting Facebook, the word amazing works a lot better. So that's the sort of looking at superlative words. If I then go and look at other words and phrases, it gets quite interesting, really. So I'll just take a few of them: history of, rise of, future of, trends, insights. We can see that history of works really well on Facebook, but doesn't really work so well on Twitter or LinkedIn. However, if we look at trends, we can see that it works equally well on Facebook, but it also works both on Twitter and LinkedIn. LinkedIn, people like things like industry trends, etc., and it seems to do very well on Twitter as well. So, whereas if I look at the bottom and look at insights, that doesn't work particularly well on Facebook at all, that word. Doesn't work particularly well on Twitter. Works sort of okay on LinkedIn, but not as good as trends, so I might be better off using trends rather than insights. Truth about works on Facebook, but not on LinkedIn. Whereas if I look at something like future of, for example, that is another one that works across all three networks. So future of works on Facebook, but it seems to equally resonate on LinkedIn. So trends, future of, that resonates on LinkedIn. And so the question then I suppose is what can you do with that particular data? So just to give you an example here of how I think you can try to use some of this data. I pulled a post at random. This is an IAB Global Insights report. If I was writing ad copy or a headline to promote that on LinkedIn, I think I'd be better off using trends rather than insights from the research that we've done. I'd actually probably use a headline like 10 economic trends you need to know, because I would pull out that common viral structure to try and get more traffic and drive more traffic. Or alternatively, I could use the future of rather than simply insights, because the future of seems to resonate better on LinkedIn. And of course, you need to test things, but that's what the data would tend to show. So you can start to use the insights to write different copy. Okay, so coming back to the differences between our different networks. Okay, just waiting for the slide to load. Okay, so let's look at content types. Pictures, I've already said, it works really well on Facebook. So we can see here that a headline with the word pictures in, on average, got 11,000 likes and shares on Facebook. But actually, pictures don't do that well on LinkedIn. They don't do so bad on Twitter, but not so good there. Quotes, not as good, but still quite good. Facts, also quite good. When you get to tips, interestingly, does very well on Twitter. So people do seem to share things about tips on Twitter. And so it performs relatively well. It also performs quite well on Facebook. So 8,000 is quite good. Interestingly, it also performs quite well on LinkedIn. And it's some interesting data here when you look at these last three here for LinkedIn, because what we can see is that content types like tips, habits, mistakes all perform relatively well on LinkedIn, whereas pictures, quotes, facts perform much better on Facebook, for example. And I think, again, it's your audience on LinkedIn who are looking for business success, tips to be more successful, habits to build, mistakes to avoid. So we can see how those different types and words resonate in the different headlines. And just moving on to a couple of final points, and then I'll give you some takeaways from the research that we've been doing. Okay, so if we go back and remember our list here, so these are our trigrams. We can see on the left-hand side, 50% of the Facebook ones are list posts. And I really hate to say this, but list posts do appear to work, and particularly list posts that begin with 10. 10 is the top performing list post, but anything beginning with a number tends to work very well. So I did this analysis. So I looked at different content formats. So the first one is list posts that begin with 10. You can see how well they perform on Facebook, 45,000 average shares and likes. And this is over 10,000 posts for a list post that begins with 10. But interestingly, it also works well on Twitter, and it also works well on LinkedIn. So a list post seems to work across all the networks. So does how-to post. So how-to post works less well on Facebook, but it works well on Twitter and on LinkedIn. So those two formats tend to work really well across all the networks, whereas a quiz works really well on Facebook, doesn't work on LinkedIn, for example. Guide's a bit more mixed. And so if you wanted to be really safe about things, you could say, if I'm going to be lazy, produce something that works across all the networks, then maybe using list posts and how-to posts is the way to go. And I was talking to somebody about this, and they were saying, but Steve, that's going to be really boring because everyone's just going to write list posts and how-to posts, and then people won't share it anymore, and it'll all be the same. And I understand the concern, but I pulled the top posts here for Social Media Examiner. So this next slide shows most shared posts on Social Media Examiner in the last year. So just let that load. That's not. Oh, sorry. Before I get there, one more slide that's coming up. Just to show you how to use that. So, for example, here's another example: free guide on tech recruiting. If I was going to promote that on LinkedIn, I would change it from free guide to how to successfully recruit software engineers, how to run a killer software recruitment campaign. Alternatively, if I was going to run it across multiple networks, I would use something like 10 proven ways to recruit software engineers, because I know that type of headline works across Facebook and all the others, whereas how-to tends to work relatively better on LinkedIn. And there's this issue then about, will all posts be how-to posts and list posts? And here are the top most shared posts now on Social Media Examiner for the last year. So, and I say these are simply the most shared posts on Social Media Examiner for the last year, and I could go down further and further. It's a bit small, hard for you to see, but I just wanted to show you how many there are, and you can scroll down and scroll down. Just go to BuzzSumo and do the search for socialmediaexaminer.com. You can see all their top shared posts are list posts or how-to posts. Now, I don't know if that's editorial policy or individuals come up with different headlines themselves, but consistently they're using those types of headlines. And so I think there is a danger that lots of headlines look the same, and there is still loads of scope for creative headlines, still using that structured format that we talked about. There's a lot of scope. I like the one that said 3 glasses of champagne a day helps prevent dementia and Alzheimer's. So that's great. I'll read and make sure that's right, and then I can drink. But it's so there is scope for creativity, but if you're just going to be safe, then actually how-to posts and list posts do seem to work quite well. And I say at one level, I hate to say it, but the data seems to bear that out. Quickly looking at topics and then takeaways, Donald Trump is really a trending topic at the moment. We can see on Facebook really high, Twitter also high, LinkedIn people less concerned about it. There are perennial favorites like dog, love, they get shared quite well. I did sales just to have a look, and actually sales is one of the top performing terms on LinkedIn, so the people there do seem to be interested in how to increase sales, etc. So having sales in a headline seems to work there. And you can leverage a trending topic. So I picked out a few examples of articles that leverage Donald Trump, and the top one here is by none other than Larry himself. So 21 Donald Trump quotes that are surprisingly brilliant. But other people have started to leverage Donald Trump, so 5 things you can learn about presentation from Donald Trump. You can do it with any topic really, but your headline can leverage a trending topic. So, okay, some quickly then recap takeaways from the research that we've done, and I'm happy to share more on this. The first one is viral headlines do have common elements and structures in our experience, so make sure you use those core elements in your headline and your ad copy. So there clearly are elements that help headlines go viral. The second one, I'll just let the slides load up. So I'm clicking through here and then waiting to see them change on my screen, so they haven't changed yet. okay, is different phrases do appear to resonate differently on different networks. So you need to research the words and phrases that work on the networks you're targeting, but also in your particular industry and area. So my suggestion would be you probably do need to draft different copy for posts, for social media posts, and for ads on different social networks by targeting the ones that have the most resonance in that particular network. So you need to do a bit of research, so it's not all easy for you. My view is you do need to do some research. I've shared general stats here today, but you need to look at specifics for you, and it's quite easy to do. I can go through this in more detail, but basically if you just did run a BuzzSumo search for the most shared content on a topic area, export that data to Excel, simply copy the top 500, 1,000, 5,000 headlines, and then paste them into an online text analyzer tool. I've given an example there of a free one, and the slides are being shared so you can get them. And then that text analyzer tool will just pull out for you the top 3-word phrases, or you can use statistical tools like R. But it's important that you understand what the top ones are, what's working in your area. And then, as I said, finally, it's just to reiterate this point about having to do your research. I've done this general research. Hopefully it's been helpful, provided some ideas and thoughts for you about what works in headlines and what might equally work in ads. But you've got to research what works for you, whether it's the superlative words that resonate in your industry, whether it's the particular content types that work, or the words, but then combine them in those viral headline formats. And I'm sure that then you will get sort of enhanced performance from working on that way. So that's all I had to say, and thanks for listening. I hope it's been interesting, and I'm happy to share and answer questions later with Larry. Sorry, that's just a little bit about BuzzSumo screen there. So.
Thank you so much, Steve. That was some great stuff. We've pretty much blown up Twitter with this webinar. Thank you to everybody on the line who's participating. We love your comments and thoughts. This is your last chance to get your questions in for Steve and Larry. We do have a special offer for everybody on the line, so I'm going to launch a quick poll here. If you guys are interested in WordStream and BuzzSumo, we do have these 2 offers. WordStream, we're offering you a 1-hour AdWords assessment, and BuzzSumo is offering you 30% off 3-month prescription to BuzzSumo. I use BuzzSumo all the time. It's a great help to us here at WordStream. So if you're interested in 1, 2, or both of these offers, go ahead and opt in and get your last questions in here for our experts. And while we have people jumping in this poll, Steve and Larry, I'm gonna kick off our first question here. So Larry, you talked a lot about eliminating the amount of keywords in your account. Is there a time frame that you should start to look to change up these keywords or remove them from your account, or how long do you keep them in your account before you decide that they're crap keywords? Hey, Larry, if you can speak up a little bit. It was a little hard to hear you there. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me actually move on to our next question. Does quality score impact your account, or is it just the actual campaign, or is there a difference between the 2? What are your thoughts, Larry?
There's definitely an account level quality score, and they use that for keywords where they don't have a lot of data on. Okay, so it's kind of like your reputation precedes you. So like you're trying to introduce new ad, Facebook or Twitter or Google, they don't know how it's going to perform, so they kind of base it on how have other similar things in your accounts done recently. So that's the account level quality score. Perfect,
thank you, Larry. Over to Steve. So Steve, when you're writing your headlines, is there an optimal character or word count that you go by, or what are your thoughts on the actual length of that?
Yeah, I think generally the shorter the better. I think generally on headlines, people like relatively short headlines, but you've got to get those key elements in. So what I would say is you don't want to be super long in terms of the headlines, but I would try to include a number of those elements of what makes a viral post. So, whether it's the format element or the emotional word element. So by definition, that pushes it to a certain length, but I would try to avoid overly long headlines, just as a matter of course, really. Everybody's looking for shorter sort of content. So I would try to keep the headline reasonably succinct, but I don't target a specific word length, but I'm conscious of when things start to wrap on screens and all those sorts of things, making it a bit harder to read. So I try to keep them short, but with a view of having at least 3 or 4 of those viral elements in the headline. And ideally, if you can be as succinct as Larry, getting all 5 into that headline was amazing. So he did manage to get all 5 in a very short headline. Using 5 times helps on the promise element. But so trying to get at least 3 or 4 of those elements in, I think, to the headline, because there is a lot of evidence now that that helps in terms of people sharing content, and I think also people clicking through to that content.
I just think it's such a miracle that the headline that we wrote matches your template. And Steve was on vacation when we wrote this thing.
Yeah. There was no collaboration. Literally, the headline was written in my absence, and I just happened to analyse. I thought, oh well, I'll use that one as an example. So I didn't know how many elements it had in it, and I thought, oh, it's got all 5 in it. So, and it's obviously worked as well. We've attracted lots of you to the webinar, so it's clearly worked.
Yeah, proof of performance, right? We eat our own dog food here at BuzzSumo and WordStream. So this next question comes from Emma. Emma wants to know, is there a best emotional trigger? What do you think, guys?
Oh, geez. If you're trying to get urgency, nothing does it like fear and anger. It sounds terrible, but those are kind of like the emotions that really trigger, immediacy, urgency for ads. What do you think, Steve, for content?
Yeah, I think it depends on obviously what it's for and those sort of things. But I think you're right. There's a thing about fear. Are you losing sales? Those sorts of approaches definitely generate that. As I think we've seen from our research, the words that have impact tend to vary a bit by the network. So if it's just a blog post style thing, the word amazing images and things those words work very well on Facebook. But as we've shown, they don't really work at all on LinkedIn. So it really depends on the audience that you're targeting. On LinkedIn, the word successful works. If you go to LinkedIn, if you go to BuzzSumo and do a search for LinkedIn.com, virtually all the top posts have the word successful in there. How to be successful, things successful people do, things successful people don't do, etc. So I think it varies a lot depending on your audience. So you need to understand your audience and then see what sort of content they're interacting with and ads they're interacting with.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Next question. Our audience wants to know, in AdWords, should you be using ad customizers to create urgency? Larry, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. The ad customizers, for people who are not familiar with, it's kind of like dynamic keyword insertion, but with like special bells and whistles. So you could say the sale ends, rather than saying like, a certain date, you could make it a dynamic parameter. So I could say sale ends in 1 hour, or sale ends, tomorrow. It'll just update automatically. And the search is done, and so this basically makes it even more urgent and generates higher click-through rates. So definitely something worth trying out.
Definitely works wonders on me. Those J. Crew ads get me every time.
We're going to run out of clothing to sell after Friday. So you better buy it now. Saturday rolls around, another sale comes out.
Gets you every time. So our audience wants to know, it's convenient to use humor to promote. It be convenient to use humor to promote a serious company like a car financing dealership, or should they really stick to the facts and advantages about their financing and their services? How can they kind of dress that up?
I think there's tremendous benefits of being a little bit, if you're being a little bit flexible with that messaging, like especially, like, can you imagine like a network like Twitter or Facebook, that dramatically rewards like the creativity and humor and So I think it's worth advocating for. Hopefully, some of the data shared here would help you make that case. Steve, anything to add?
Yeah, no, we can see from the data that humor works. I think the issue is you just got to be sensitive around it on particular topic areas and things, so around certain subjects and how you use humor. But humor used correctly, we can see it's one of the most shared pieces of content are around humor. So, but it's using it appropriately, I think. But people want companies with personality. They want some humor from their day jobs, etc. So everybody likes a bit of humor, I think. It's just finding the right way to inject that humor. So it's just something you have to use carefully. But there's no question, if you get the humor right, you really can create sort of viral content and well-shared content.
Great responses, guys. So this is a great question for both of you here on the line. Besides WordStream and BuzzSumo, which obviously are amazing tools and we all stand behind them, what other tools do you guys use on a regular basis to help you come up with these headlines or this clicky content?
Yeah, I use a range of tools really. I mean, I still obviously search through Google and things like that to see what's working across Google. I use a series of news readers and things as well to see what's being shared on particular days. I use simple tools often like Hashtagify, if people know hashtagify.me, to see related hashtags so I can see related content. Because often I think everyone's coming at it from one angle and you want to come at it from a slightly different angle, so I often like to see the related hashtags and see if people are approaching it from a slightly different angle. So I like using tools like Hashtagify just to see the related hashtags and where the conversation might be moving to. So I like using those sorts of tools as well.
I have one that I use called Nuzzle, N-U-Z-Z-E-L, and what that does is it analyzes my Twitter following and figures out what content was shared yesterday, like in the last 24 hours. So that I think it's kind of more like for trending topic identification, which I think is something that is supported in BuzzSumo, but I just like that they send me a daily email.
Yeah, I use Nuzzle as well. It's quite nice because you say it's more specific to you because it's what your friends on Twitter are sharing and getting shared. So you can on BuzzSumo see the trending content for any particular day or the last hour. But Nuzzle's quite nice in seeing what your friends are sharing.
Yeah, right. I use BuzzSumo to figure out what's the kind of a global maximum, like what's doing the best in the world, and the Nuzzle is like what's doing well with my friends, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to take one more question from the audience, and I think we've touched on this a little bit, but how can you add urgency to all of this? I know emotional triggers can, some countdowns can, but how do you get these people to act faster? Like, is there any way to get them to just jump on this right away?
So you're looking to like increase the conversion rates, basically. Well, like I was saying earlier, the same, like you usually are doing both. Like we see higher click-through rates generally result in higher conversion rates in the back end, and definitely generate lower costs because of the higher click-through rates, the lower cost per click. I think if you do this, that will be the outcome. No, is there anything to add, Steve?
No, I think I'm going back to the point you made before about if you want people to act urgently, you can do all the standard things about limited offer periods and trying to push people to do things. I think fear of missing out, that fear, uncertainty, and doubt works as well. Are you missing sales? Are you losing customers? What are your competitors doing? Sometimes that can push people as well. So like that BuzzSumo 30% offer, that's going to run out, I think, at the end of tomorrow. Wasn't that the agreement?
No more subscriptions available.
Yeah, no more subscriptions. BuzzSumo doesn't exist after Friday, so you've really got to get that, use that coupon by then. So I think there are different ways you can try to generate a sense of urgency. Although I'm not always sure that it works when you try to push people, but there are certainly ways that you can create more of a sense of urgency.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you for all of those great questions, everybody out there on the line, and Steve and Larry, thank you for being our experts today. We hope you enjoyed today's session, and guys, thank you so much for your attendance today. If you have any questions, feel free to tweet at us, #CTRHacks, or at BuzzSumo, at Steve Rayson, at Larry Kim, or at WordStream. Guys, thank you so much for your time today.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.